I am recording this on Tuesday, the 13th of May, 2025, and Winds of Winter is not out yet. And that's fine. Yes, it would be nice to have an ending or the penultimate installment for a story we've been invested in for like 25 years or something. But we're not owed it. We're not owed Winds of Winter. This isn't like one of those million Kickstarter scams where you materially pay for something that you just don't get. None of us have paid for Winds of Winter. You can't pre-order it anywhere, at least nowhere reputable. So therefore we aren't owed it. This is, again, speaking materially, but we could speak artistically too. The Song of Ice and Fire is George R.R. Martin's. It is his to do with what he wants. Just because we got attached to his characters, his world, his story, doesn't mean we're entitled to any more of them. I loved Skyrim. I saw that trailer for Elder Scrolls 6 that came out like a million years ago. Does that mean I am entitled to that game? No. They may never make it. I mean, if they're smart and they like money, they would absolutely make it. But they may never do. And that's fine. But what if it isn't fine? A Dance with Dragons came out in 2011. That is 14 years ago. That is a very long time ago. That is, in my opinion, enough time to have written Winds of Winter. Again, I'm not saying we are owed it. I'm just saying it could be out now. Why isn't it? Well, the best way I can put this, other than sort of just writer's block and not being able to figure stuff out in the story, Mr. Martin likes his side quests, and this is probably by design for the sake of his own sanity. Being trapped inside a single story, being trapped inside the heads of a select few characters has got to be incredibly stifling, monotonous, and quite miserable at times. How many of Bran's internal monologues or descriptions of Sansa's clothes do you have to write before that gets very old? I mean, I'm surprised Tolkien wasn't sick of the sight of Middle-earth by the end of it, and that the ring's destruction didn't result in just the whole place exploding just so he could be shot of it. He may say otherwise if he's been asked this at all, but I am willing to bet there is a part of George R.R. Martin that loathes every single blade of grass from the wall down to the tip of dawn. I really want to be doing this other thing, but I literally cannot because I've locked myself into doing this first thing. And this first thing is not stimulating me nearly as much as it did when I started. In fact, I hate doing this first thing now. I would never have imagined I could possibly hate doing this first thing, but doing it for what feels like my whole life has made me hate it. I've got to stop doing this first thing or I feel like I'm going to turn into mist or something. I need to do something else. The biggest and most cynical of these side quests, I'd say, is Fire and Blood. If you had to blame Winds of Winter not being out on a single tangible thing, it would be this. Written after A Dance with Dragons in the exact time frame where work on Winds of Winter should have been happening. Fire and Blood is a good but unnecessary addendum to the Song of Ice and Fire world. Created, in my opinion, mainly to drum up hype for the House of the Dragon show. I would not be surprised that if, in a few years' time, we find out that HBO drove a dustbin van full of money up to George R.R. Martin's house and said, stop working on Winds of Winter, make something that we can tie into our new show. That is, if something like that hasn't already been confirmed to have happened. And I say unnecessary because of 3 pre-existing side quests. The Princess and the Queen from 2013, The Rogue Prince from 2014, and The Sons of the Dragon from 2017. All written after A Dance with Dragons, and all covering stuff that shows up in the House of the Dragon show. Just re-release these 3 novellas in a big fancy special edition. Market the hell out of that, and just completely leave Fire and Blood, please. Elden Ring. It is highly debated and difficult to get a concrete fact on George R.R. Martin's contributions to the greatest video game ever made. Having played it quite a bit and having read quite a lot of George R.R. Martin's work, I can see his fingerprints. Lol. all over it. The names of the characters, the names of the places, the names of the dragons, the names of the events, the setting, the mythology. It's all very him. I mean, if a Targaryen rocked up riding a dragon called Fortisax, you wouldn't bat an eye, would you? It's very Soulsian too, don't get me wrong, but because more of it is explained to you outright, unlike the lore of other Souls games, it does lean more toward the harder world building of mainstream fantasy. Winds of Winter's release was a worthy sacrifice in this case, regardless of George's input. Fix Commander Gaius' hitboxes though, for goodness sake. The World of Ice and Fire is another one of George's side quests. I actually have it, and I was meant to have it next to me for this video, so I'll have to go get it. Bear with. The World of Ice and Fire is another one of George's many side quests, and as a person who loves maps more than his next breath, I can say that this was desperately needed. I love this thing. It is so extra and it is so awesome for it. It's like having a beautifully made physical version of the wiki in your hands. Other big franchises should follow suit. I would buy the hell out of a one-piece version of this, and a lot of it wasn't even written by him. So less main series writing time was taken up. I'd say it was a pretty brilliant side quest for him to undertake. So those are just a few of the side quests George R.R. Martin completed whilst simultaneously writing A Song of Ice and Fire. They're varied, widespread, but all, except maybe Elden Ring, have their roots in one place, the story we will be looking at today. The Hedge Knight, the first entry in the Dunk and Egg series, and the first story in the A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms trilogy. Obviously he'd done a lot of non-A Song of Ice and Fire stuff before the Hedge Knight came out, but it really does feel like the first proper large diversion from the main series. So, given that this is the origin point for at least a portion of the delays to Winds of Winter, am I glad George R.R. Martin wrote it? Now, I'd normally do my quick thoughts on the book here, but given that my quick thoughts on the book would immediately and rather unceremoniously answer that question, let's do more of a long thoughts on the book. If you don't know, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is a series of short stories set just about 100 years before the main story of A Song of Ice and Fire, following a young hedge knight, Sir Duncan the Tall, aka Dunk, as he travels around Westeros, entering tourneys, pledging his swords to various lords and getting into scraps. The first of the stories, The Hedge Knight, has Dunk intending to enter the tourney at Ashford Meadow. However, things quickly go awry and he finds himself in a trial by combat, a trial by 7, involving a handful of Targaryen princes, and ends with him taking a young Targaryen prince, Aegon, aka Egg, as his travelling squire. The fact that I was able to summarise that so simply should be a big indicator to the differences between it and A Song of Ice and Fire. It is far less complicated, far more straightforward, and is, in my opinion, brilliant for it. A simple story about a knight doing a single thing is a truly perfect contrast to the sprawling political intrigue and hundreds of intricately woven dangling threads of the main series. And it's the contrast with the main series, not just in simplicity and scale, that is a Hedge Knight's biggest strength. Like, obviously it's beautifully written, and the characters are fun, and the dialogue is that classic Song of Ice and Fire blend of sort of flamboyantly Shakespearean, but also crass and real. Editing Henry here. I genuinely don't know how I'm supposed to say that word. Crass or crass. I don't say bath, I say bath. So I shouldn't say crass. I should say crass. But that doesn't sound right at all, right? I don't know. But it's the contrasts at play here that really set it apart. There is a contrast in tone, being not exactly happy. George R.R. Martin did write this after all. Far more light-hearted than the main series. The good guys tend to win. How mad a concept is that? There is a contrast in the characters, especially the main character. Dunk is unambiguously good. He is a true knight, honourable and kind. Were he in the main series, he would have been rewarded for this decency by having his head cut off. Egg is plucky and clever, and not some kind of twisted psychopath like the other princes we're used to. And while there are some crazy Targaryens knocking about, there are actually more nice ones than evil ones. It is all such a breath of fresh air and actually leaves you in a better mood finishing it than when you started it, which is not something you can always say about the relentless sadness and bleakness of A Song of Ice and Fire. There is the contrast in setting. We are in peacetime here. Something present in the main series, but not for very long. And this piece shows there is a distinct lack of overarching seriousness and gravity. And while that might sound like a negative, it really isn't because of the contrast. We've had the seriousness and the gravity. We've had thousands of men dying in the mud. Now let's just do some jousting in the sunshine and only have like 4 men dying in the mud. It doesn't mean there aren't stakes or drama, it's all just more restrained. And with those contrasts in characters, setting, and tone, we get a contrast in theme. As hard as it is to believe, the book is telling you, the reader, doing the right thing won't always lead to your humiliation and brutal death. You can be a good person and not have the world tear you apart like a rabid dog. I really like that. And as a result of this contrast and the others, I really like the book. So in case you can't tell, the answer to the question posed by this video is yes. Yes, I am glad George R.R. Martin wrote this. Even if you looked at it like the way I laid it out earlier in the video, even if you trace every single delay in the writing process of every single mainline book back to it, even if you say it is the origin point of all of George R.R. Martin's side projects, even if you say it is the sole reason as to why Winds of Winter isn't out yet, I am still glad it exists. I think, given the trajectory of the story after A Storm of Swords, and given how the show ended, I think I might end up liking Winds of Winter, whatever it may be, less than The Hedge Knight. And then in that case, I can't say that I wish this didn't exist in return for something I like less. On the other hand though, like, what if Winds of Winter reaches the heights of a Game of Thrones? What do I do then? Would I still be glad The Hedge Knight exists if it was responsible for delaying something so good? I suppose we'll have to see when Winds of Winter comes out. Hello, thanks a lot for getting to the end of the video. Like and subscribe. Going to be going away for a bit, but that shouldn't affect release schedule, I don't think. So we should be back with the last, I say last, I still haven't really decided, the next Pokemon Adventures book. Yeah. See you then.